in Addis Ababa in 1963 by the creation or with the creation of the Organization of African Unity is that the forces against unity were very strong. So the OAU was actually a weakened body, as some used to say, a toothless bulldog. And when African leaders meet in Sirte in Egypt, hosted by the late Muammar al-Gaddafi, they say OAU has had problems, but it cannot be denied that she has participated in ensuring that independence is regained, but it is not the body that we need going forward. The body that we need going forward is a much more powerful body, a body that is one that rekindles the spirit of unity. So in Sirte, the decision is made that that body must change its name. That is how the African Union is born. And then it is actually delivered in Durban in South Africa in the year 2002 with the intention of midwifing a process that will lead to African unity politically, economically, and otherwise. So the African Union is the body that is designed to achieve that because it is a development by refinement from the Organization of African Unity. Has it done that? Has it achieved that? No. Is it too early to judge? Yes, it is. The struggle towards unity is one that is long and tortuous. And remember that even within the continent of Africa, there are people who do not desire unity. They want to be big sharks in small ponds. Outside of the continent of Africa, as I've already indicated, there are forces that would not like Africa to unite because it divide them and rule them. Can the AU achieve it? What has the AU done since it came into being or since it was pronounced as the immediate successor of the OAU? A number of useful things, a number of declarations. Number one, in the year 2013, the heads of states and government birthed the Agenda 2063, which is a grand blueprint that says Africa shall develop on this path on the basis of 7 pillars. And ultimately, that will ensure that Africa becomes an important player in the world arena. We have seen that it has tried to harmonize African activities in critical areas. In the area of agriculture, for example, we saw what was done under the Maputo Declaration, I think, of 2004, the Malabo Declaration of 2013, again, the Malabo Declaration of 2022, in order to focus on agriculture. On women, we have the Maputo Declaration. On the airspace, we have the Yamoussoukro Declaration of 1988. In the health sector, we have the Abuja Declaration of 2001. And of course, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, whose agenda is to eliminate tariff and non-tariff barriers. So I think that the African Union, despite its weaknesses, despite the fact that it lacks funding, remember that nearly 60% of the African Union budget is externally funded, which is sad. Until the day that we begin to fund our activities, unity will always be a mirage. And I think that going forward, what we need to do is not to create new institutions, but to energize existing institutions by having them populated by Pan-Africanists. And I'm suggesting that one of the weaknesses of the African Union is that the individuals who have been given the honor and privilege of leading her have not done a good job. I think, of course, that Nkosazana and Lamini Zuma of South Africa tried to do a good job. The current holder, Muhammad Faki, has not been as enthusiastic as I would want him to be. But he does argue, and perhaps there is merit in that argument, that he does not have the necessary political support. But in a nutshell, I'm saying that the AU is the body that we must use. A bad workman and a bad workwoman, if you may, blames the tools. I'm not just about to say that the AU ought to be, the AU ought to be eliminated, but it ought to be strengthened for the sake of African unity. A united Africa must be an Africa that is at peace with herself. And what do I mean peace? Do I mean peace that is the peace of the graveyard where everybody agrees with everybody else? No, I cannot possibly mean that. Because within the continent of Africa, there are different nations. And these nations find themselves in the modern African state. So that if you go to South Africa, for example, there is the Zulu nation, there is the Xhosa nation, there is the Pedi nation, there is the Swana nation. You go to Nigeria, you'll find different nations, the Yoruba nation, the Igbo nation, the Ibibio nation. If you go to Ghana, you'll find the Ga nation, the Ewe nation, the Ashanti nation. You go to Uganda, you find the Binyoro Kitara, you find the Baganda. You come to Kenya, you find the Luo, you find the Agikoyo, you find the Ameru, you find the Kalenjin, Navaluya. You go to Ethiopia, you find the Tigray, you find the Oromo. You go to southern Cameroons, you find different peoples. So one of the things that we must do in order to have an Africa that is united properly is that the internal contradictions within the countries, the conflict that are now raging in places such as Cameroon or in Democratic Republic of Congo or in Darfur in Sudan or in Ethiopia or in Somalia must be resolved. Once they are resolved, the current boundaries, if they are to be retained, will be for purposes of administration. So the Africa that I see is a confederal Africa, is an Africa which has a headquarters somewhere, as Kwame Nkrumah used to say, that it should be headquartered in Bangui in Central African Republic because it is central. But now that we have Addis Ababa as the headquarters, it can be in Addis Ababa. That is the headquarters. An Africa that has one president. An Africa that has governors in her component units. An Africa which is represented in other parts of the world by single ambassadors. We eliminate the 54 of them. An Africa that has a cabinet, an Africa that borrows from the experiences of others and adapts them. The Confederal Constitution in Little Switzerland can be a beginning point. The manner in which the United States of America governs our states could be the traditional rulers who are to be found in different parts of Africa also to be given their pride of place. In other words, the big task now is to say, how will we have this new architecture that allows Africa to thrive in her diversity? She must have one military, and she must have one military commander. She must have a confederal police system, but with components of policing being left to the others. We must have an educational system which allows for credit transfer. If I'm at Cheikh Anta Diop University in Senegal and I want to move to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia with my credits, I should be able to do so. We must have an adopted lingua franca. Kiswahili has already been chosen as an adopted lingua franca to be used. But if we want to choose any other language, we can do so. We can choose Amhara, we can choose Yoruba, but Kiswahili is the language. So that Africa is an Africa that speaks with one voice. Will that Africa be immune from difficulties? No. It is the nature of any human enterprise that it will always have its trials and tribulations. It is how we mediate those conflicts that makes us stronger. But that Africa is possible, that Africa is desirable. Even if we don't achieve it in our lifetime, it is a task that we are giving to successive generations. It is an intergenerational